Welcome to the fourth public workshop that United Policyholders has hosted here in still future beautiful community of Santa Rosa, and then for our friends from other areas that are here, welcome as well. So my name is Amy Bach, and I am the Executive Director of United Policyholders, as well as the co-founder of the organization. And I'm very pleased to be here with you again. I'm beginning to see a lot of familiar faces, which kind of feels nice for me. So I figure the information is proving useful, so you're coming back. We wanted to do an experiment and hold 2 sessions today because I don't know, get a show of hands. How many of you have been to previous workshops? Right, okay, so thank you. And then, so of course you know that we were having a little space problem, and I felt terrible seeing people waiting in line and not having a seat and standing up. And you know, we are here to try to ease your stress, not compound it. So I'm glad that we were able to work with the church to have 2 sessions today. We had a very good session this afternoon, and we'll be covering the same material tonight. The plan in the new year is to switch to the high school, the Santa Rosa High School auditorium, so that we can accommodate everyone. But we can, during the Q&A portion tonight, if anyone has a strong opinion about that, I'm happy to hear it. But that currently is the plan. And the next workshop that we are planning will be in mid-January, and the topic will be financial decision making. And we're going to have a panel of local experts in construction financing, real estate, other kinds of loans, SBA loans, a mortgage expert, and a CPA who specializes in casualty tax loss preparation, so that we can give you all sort of a head start on your tax filing and help you with some of the decisions that you are grappling with. So we are very, very pleased and grateful to be joined tonight by some of our partners. We've got, if I can invite anyone who's with a partner to come up on the stage. We've got thank you. Awesome. The City of Santa Rosa is here, and if you want to, you can just get started with a welcome. We are very pleased since our last. Hi, are you with the county?
Legal aid.
Legal aid, great. Okay. Since our last workshop, the city approached us and said, "Hey, let's work together." We were thrilled. We had already been working with the county a little bit, and again, our purpose for offering this workshop series is to give you good information to help you make the decisions that you are going to be making on your road to recovery. So we have, in addition to the folks that are up here with me, there's also representatives from FEMA that are here. They have a table out there. If one of them doesn't come in, I will explain to you. Oh, there we go. Come on up. You want to come up, Lori? Did I have that right? Okay, so City of Santa Rosa.
Thank you. My name is David Ewan. I'm the Assistant City Manager of the City of Santa Rosa. So thank you. We're proud to partner with United Policyholders, and thank you for including us in this. One of the things we wanted to make sure that people knew that we are going to hold some special sessions, specifically for renters or mobile home park owners. So if you are and you're interested in those, please see Serena. She's over here. She can take your information to make sure you get that information where those meetings are. But also an important website to keep track of. I'm sure you've heard of it a lot. That's SonomaCountyRecovers.org. All the information we have are posted on that site. It's a great one-stop shop for information regarding everything with recovery. And then finally, again, I'm with the Planning and Economic Development Department as well, so I'll be here to help answer questions if you have permitting questions about Santa Rosa, the City of Santa Rosa. And we have just opened up our rebuild center at City Hall, which is a dedicated permit counter for people that are looking to rebuild in the City of Santa Rosa. And you can go in there, room 6. It's from 8 to 5 days a week. And they can answer all your questions and help get you through the process. for the grant.
Okay, and then FEMA.
Hi, my name is Lori. I'm with Individual Assistance. My purpose here tonight is to encourage all of y'all. Our deadline to file for registration is December 11th. Same with SBA. If you don't need the assistance now, you might need it later on. So we have 2 people here that are willing to take in registration intake. We also have 2 DRCs that will remain open for the next couple of weeks. One at the Hannah Boys Village and one right here on Mendocino, the Press Democrat. So we want to encourage you, even if you are insured, you may be underinsured. You may find that out 6 months from now. So we want to encourage everybody to make sure that your registrations are in before the deadline, and let's see what we can do for you to help you guys out.
Thank you, Lori. And just to add, we have worked many disasters in many different communities of different demographics, socioeconomics, etc. And even if, and I'm here to tell you, get that FEMA number, register, because there's no downside, there's only an upside. And what you may find, as Lori said, down the road, maybe you run out of ALE and you want to avail yourself of one of their mobile homes or one of their trailers for temporary residence. Maybe you want to apply for an SBA loan. No harm in getting that number and registering whatever your income level may be. So we're also joined by our partners, Legal Aid of Sonoma County, as well as California Rural Legal Assistance and the Department of Insurance that will be co-presenting a little later. So thank you for being with us, Legal Aid.
Sure. Hi, my name is Caden Blonsky. I am a staff housing attorney with Legal Aid. What we do is provide no-cost legal help to people that are facing housing issues. That's been primarily our bailiwick and what I've been doing mostly. But in addition to that, we've also hired a disaster relief attorney to help people dealing with insurance issues, with FEMA issues, just to help people navigate the system. To that end, we are having a FEMA appeal workshop this Saturday, I believe, from 10 to 12. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's at our at the Legal Aid offices. It's not my bailiwick. But if you are interested, we have a sign-up sheet outside, so if you sign up, we're going to get you that information, as well as if you're facing a specific legal issue that's fire-related, we can help you with that issue. There's a form out there that you can fill out and put down your information, your name, your number, generally what you're dealing with, and one of our attorneys will get back to you. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. And then California Rural Legal Assistance.
Thank you very much. I'm Jeff Hoffman. I'm the directing attorney for CRLA, California Rural Legal Assistance. I wanted to thank United Policyholders for inviting us along to come this evening, and we've been working with them on a variety of different issues that we're seeing in the work that we're doing and just in general, so appreciate that. So CRLA is a nonprofit law office, and similar to Legal Aid, we provide free legal assistance. We provide assistance to lower income persons in Sonoma and Napa counties. We've been in Sonoma County since 1967. We are providing assistance to people who were affected by the fires. And this is a list of some of the issues that we've been working on and will continue to work on for a period to come, we're pretty sure. So you can contact our office. This is our contact information. We're located in Santa Rosa. I will be outside afterwards for a while if you want to chat or have any questions. One other thing I wanted to mention is that working with United Policyholders, and also we've been working with a collaborative or coalition, if you will, of different organizations, including the Bay Area Resilience Collaborative, which includes State Bar, different bar associations from the Bay Area, different nonprofits, and Legal Aid, and ourselves, and United Policyholders. going to be having another set of workshops related to insurance issues starting in January. This one will be January 6th. At this one, it's going to be a little, and in this series, it will be a little more focused, and through the Bay Area Resilience Collaborative, we're going to be bringing in volunteer attorneys, in part from the San Francisco Trial Lawyers Association and other groups. What we want to do is, after the brief presentation, have a few minutes, or maybe half hour at least, where you can talk one-on-one with an attorney about specific questions that are starting to come up. In part, we want to get to assistance. We want to start identifying what the issues are out there, the bigger systemic issues, if you will, that maybe can be addressed through advocacy, different types of advocacy, or maybe going to court. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see what happens. But there's limited space, so you would need to call our office for that. Again, that's starting January 6th, and then we'll keep scheduling them as there's demand. So again, thank you very much for having us here. That's all we have.
Thank you so much. So you can see that the workshop that the gentleman was just talking about is not until January. However, there is one coming up this Saturday that you'll be hearing a little bit more about later in the program, that the California Department of Insurance, Insurance Commissioner Dave Jones and his team, two of whom are here tonight, are hosting, which will give you, again, the opportunity to schedule a one-on-one sit-down with a member of their staff. So I think, when we do these workshops, we are trying to touch on the common issues that generally we feel, we know people are encountering, the decisions that people are having to make, and information. And I think a lot of times people would just really like to just have somebody look at their policy and give them individualized guidance. And that's, of course, something that we try to facilitate wherever we can. If you can, thank you. So United Policyholders, for those of you who need a refresher, we're a not-for-profit 501c3, which means that we're tax exempt, and our charter is education. So we've been around since 1991 and heavily focused on disaster recovery, but we also do a lot of advocacy work in the courts. And when there are legal battles, we do work to solve marketplace problems. We've been working to try to solve the underinsurance problem for a really long time. And so, we're very busy all the time in between disasters, but our real sweet spot is what I'm doing right now tonight with all of you. And we are funded by donations and grants. We're fueled by volunteers. And our volunteers I think that we have some of the best policyholder attorneys in the country that volunteer with us. And what is a policyholder attorney? That's a person who specializes in advocating, representing insurance consumers. Another word for that is policyholders. And of course, they understand the law, and they understand the stakes, the high stakes. And those are the kind of people that if you were to get into a dispute with an insurance company where you felt like you had no choice but to hire an attorney, you would want to hire one of the people that volunteer with us, generally speaking, because they'll be the lawyers that have been out there making the law that interprets insurance policies. And of course, why are there so many lawyers around here? It's because an insurance policy is a legal contract written by not just one lawyer, but many lawyers. And the most of the forms that your policies are in started with something, a template that the insurance company bought from a service, and then they added onto it their own language. Their lawyers added on their own language. That's why, depending on what company you're with, your policy is not going to look the same, but there's going to be a lot of similarities. Okay, so we have a lot of attorneys. Oh, sorry, not yet. We also have a lot of professional volunteers. Estimators, adjusters, retired agents, retired executives, and then one of the most important components of our organization are our disaster survivor volunteers. How many of you met some of our volunteers at the local assistance center in the first few weeks after the disaster? Okay. So I'm very, very proud of our volunteers because a lot of them are the disaster survivor volunteers. Every time there's a disaster and they come out and they offer to cover a table or speak one-on-one with people, they on some level relive what they went through themselves, but they're willing to do it because the experience of being, of having lost your home in something so sudden and so devastating is so unique that I think our volunteers really know how helpful it is for people to hear from somebody who's been there, done that, and came out on the other side. So I don't know if Fred Booker is in the room or if he's still out there. Fred, if you want to saunter down. So that's a lot of the backbone of our organization, and the meat of the information that we put out comes from people who sort of been there, done that. And we partner to improve long-term recovery, just like you saw all of these folks that came up on the stage. Those are just some of the people that we partner with. Catholic Charities is going to be doing the case management here. If you find that you need some assistance in the way of referrals to different kinds of support and you end up going that route, we often train those folks and partner with those type of folks. And of course, government agencies, because at the end of the day, insurance is both the gas and the car, typically, that's going to drive you back home on the road to recovery, and it touches your insurance rights, and your insurance benefits kind of touch on so many portions of your journey, and that's why we partner, because insurance is just one part of it, but it tends to kind of infuse the whole process. Okay. And we have 3 programs. We're offering this through the Roadmap to Recovery program. And of course, through this program, we strive to give people it's all free guidance in whatever way we can make it as easy as possible for you to access it. So we have a library that we set up just for your fire on the web. Sorry about that. We've given you the address there, but if you just go on our website, uphelp.org, uphelp.org, and right there on the homepage, there's a picture it's kind of like a sunset with that weird color during the heat of the fires. And you click on that, and there's your library. So 24/7, that library is there for you, with way more information than you're ever going to want, but hopefully all the information you need, as well as our Ask an Expert feature, which allows you to ask an individual question that then gets farmed out to our volunteers. So this workshop is intended to be general guidance only, not legal advice. We don't endorse or warrant any of the sponsors listed on our website or the speakers at our workshops. Our speakers are volunteering their time as educators. So our last workshop was November 15th, and it focused on your contents inventory and getting that part of your claim moving along towards settlement. And the team was like, I don't know if we can do another one before the new year, but I felt it was very important that we have another workshop here, because the holiday season is particularly can be challenging, but it's also an opportunity for an important phase of your recovery. And so during the holiday season, we recommend extra self-care, and we recommend that you take a little break from some of the tasks. Let's say, preparing your inventory. It's more than okay to do that. And then put on there that you can expect maybe some clueless, clumsy comments from the well-intentioned relatives saying, "Oh, so you're going to be back? You're going to be back home soon?" Yeah, not so much. So anyway, but I just wanted to make sure that we did this check-in because we've got lots of information to offer. And so just for a minute here, Fred, if you wanted to share a few thoughts.
Yeah, coming up here today, I was thinking, what was I doing 26 years ago? And my wife and I we just started the process of itemizing all our things. But the reality is, the thing that was most important to us, and I think our neighbors, was rebuilding that sense of community. And spending time with friends and family. And in the long run, that pays off. And 26 years later, the Oakland Fire area is a much stronger community today than it was 26 years ago. And from where you're looking today, it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it is there. And rely on each other and take the process slowly, but take care of yourselves first, and everything else will fall into place.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, the program here, we call it the Roadmap to Recovery, and these are just a few reminders that I like to stress, and they're just kind of wisdom that we have distilled over the 26 years we've been doing this work. There is no one-size-fits-all path. So if somebody tells you, you must do this, or you should not ever do that, that's their opinion. Okay, so the path that works for you is the path that works for you. Take your time, right? There are no deadlines coming up, at least related to insurance. So there's the FEMA registration deadline. You already did the debris removal. But as far as submitting your personal property inventory, you have time for that. As far as, starting to negotiate a settlement on your dwelling claim, again, you've got plenty of time. And you have 2 full years to get your replacement value. You've got 2 full years to use your ALE. Again, so, I recommend try to catch up on your sleep if you can, and try to get a little bit of equilibrium back at this time. Rumors will be rampant. Oh, so-and-so has already got their settlement and it was huge. Oh my gosh, I feel bad. What am I doing wrong? So some people will say things, and you have to try to kind of, stick with the people that don't increase your stress if you can. It's good to share information. The reason we have these signs up is at the end, we invite folks who are insured with the same company to sort of gather by that sign so that you can share information. But again, if that is not helpful to you, then don't do it, and don't feel like you're gonna be a loser if you don't, okay? I think, the path that suits you is the right path. And this is really important, when it comes to dealing with your insurance adjuster, your insurance company, there's no harm in asking for exceptions and asking for extensions. And it happens all the time. Extensions are routinely granted, and exceptions. So for example, clearly, when it comes to inventorying your personal property, itemizing, insurance companies are all over the map. Some of them are requiring people to list every single spice and every single thing in your medicine cabinet, and some of them are just cutting checks on a sort of a bulk basis. And it can feel really bad when your insurance company is jamming you and your neighbor's insurance company seems to be much freer with the money. But these are things that's why you're here, is to get information. Because overarching over everything that's going on is your insurance company has all kinds of legal obligations to you to treat you fairly. So again, if you feel that they are not treating you fairly, you have remedies. I'm sure you've noticed there's no shortage of lawyers around here, and you have the Department of Insurance that's here tonight, and you have us, and you've got lots and lots of redress if things start to go awry, but they may not. So we say, give your insurance company a chance to do the right thing, but don't be a pushover. And that is a really important thing to remember, okay? Because adjusters are human beings, insurance company executives are human beings. They take pride in their work. You know, even when they're junior adjusters, they're gonna work better with you if you give them good reasons to do what you're asking them to do, and you keep it professional. Okay, I know that all of you are getting it from all sides. I've heard the ads on the radio, I've seen the billboards, I've seen the posters for all the free seminars and everything else, and I've never actually seen anything quite like the competition I'm seeing to get all of your business here. It's unusual. I think it's partly because this is considered to be a somewhat affluent area, and so there's a sort of a sense out there that there might be a lot of good cases here, what have you. You know, be that as it may, again, I'm here to tell you, you have plenty of time to make these decisions. You know, to sue or not to sue, and who, right? To hire or not to hire, adjusting help, legal help, financial planning help. You do not need to make those decisions right now. You absolutely don't, okay? If you have made those decisions, you hired somebody already, that's fine. You know, if it turns out it's not a good fit, so then you switch, or you can release them. You know, so again, you know, just be kind to yourself, because this is it's, you know, these decisions come at you, and you feel like you need to make them, but again, I'm here to tell you, with a lot of years of hindsight, that you've got time. Time is on your side. Okay, what are your rights and what are your obligations? Well, you have the right to fair treatment, which is you have the right to have your benefits paid in full and on time. You have a duty of cooperation. Why do I mention that? Well, because I think a lot of times people in your position will, you know, and it's very natural, you get upset, you get frustrated, and when you get, you know, when an adjuster tells you something that doesn't make sense to you, or that is very frustrating to you, there is a sense that you want to tell them to go, right? But the problem is that you do have this duty of cooperation. So it's very important that in your in the professional way that you approach your insurance claim, that you try as much as possible to keep it professional, avoid venting, and have a paper trail that confirms that you have been cooperative. So, you know, this will confirm that on such and such a day, I was available to meet with you at the law site, you know, or this will confirm that on such and such a date, I provided you with the original plans for my house, or that sort of thing, where you're constantly, you know, putting in writing that you're doing your job at providing the insurance company with the information it needs to do the right thing, right? So you've got the halo, and you're constantly being clear that this is what I think I'm entitled to, this is why, this is what I want from you, this is when I want it, and have your request be as reasonable as possible. So if, God forbid, and hopefully will not end up in litigation down the line, but if you did, the evidence, the paper trail would show that you did your part, you cooperated, okay? And it wasn't your fault that things got off track or that there were delays and that sort of thing. Okay, hang on, one more thing there. And this is kind of between, this is really more I wouldn't call this last one a right or an obligation, it's a best practice. A best practice, be proactive on the value of your losses, right? And that's something that people have a hard time digesting at first, because, you know, all of our expectations have been formed by the commercials that we've watched our whole lives that show insurance as something other than a cold, hard legal contract written by lawyers, right? The ads are all about peace of mind, and we'll put you back where you were, and, you know, poof, there's the, you know, woman in your living room making everything great. And of course, it's nothing like that at all, which is not to say that it should be adversarial. It's just to say that when there's a lot of money at stake, as there is in your situation, it is important that these are your assets, and it's important that you have a sense of what their value is, and you present that information to the insurance company. Because as you probably have all figured out already, insurance companies have developed all kinds of techniques for processing large numbers of claims. Things like Xactimate, which is their computer program that they use to estimate the rebuilding cost of a structure, right? Even though computers don't rebuild houses, contractors do, right? But they have developed this as a way of processing lots and lots of claims, right? So is it going to be accurate? Maybe, maybe not. So that's why we say, really, if you want to get the best settlement possible, you are going to have to invest some of your own time and possibly some of your own money in proving the value of your losses. Okay, here's two pieces of lingo that just are very important to grasp. ACV versus RC. Actual cash value, which we often describe as the Craigslist value. So that would be the value of something if you were to have sold it in its present condition the day before the loss, let's say on Craigslist. So that takes into account its age and condition. So ACV, actual cash value, you can think of that as Craigslist price, right? Replacement cost value, RC, is what it will actually cost to replace your house or your stuff. So both of these phrases apply to your contents and your structure. And insurance companies have these formulas. Again, you probably all know this already, but they typically, your insurance company will want to only pay ACV until the RCV has been established. And for many things, it takes a while for the replacement cost to be established, right? Particularly when it comes to your home. All right, but those are two very important points. So tonight, we're going to be talking about how to speak up. And we have a little, well, it's not a graphic anymore because we made it more legible for you, but S, this is speaking up. S is strong as possible. P, paperwork organized. I see lots of you with notebooks, good on you. Empowered, again, you're here, so that you're doing that. Assertive but polite. Again, I assume you're all doing that. Keeping a claim diary. Insurance educated, networking with others, getting professional help when needed. U, unwilling to be shortchanged. P, proactive. So that's speaking up. And you're all on the right track just by being here. Your benefits and your rights. So, of course, in order to assert your rights, you have to know what they are, right? Your benefits. You're going to read and reread your deck page and your policy. We talked about that in the previous workshops. I'm sure by now most of you have done your own math. And you want to pay attention to those formulas. The extended replacement language. Do the provisions that increase A also increase B, C, etc.? Might there be a provision that increases coverage in disasters? Some people have been finding, when they look at their deck page, they look at that little list of the riders, endorsements, means the same thing. It's like a add-on to the basic policy. If you see something on there that has the words extended replacement or something that says something like ISO, again, you want to ask those questions and find out everything that's in your policy. So by now, you should have gotten a complete copy of your policy, complete and current, right? Lawyers will say you got to get a certified copy. That is the safe bet. Certified would mean the company certifies this is the policy, there's not any question. But for most people, and the statute that gives you the right to get it within 30 days just talks about a complete and current policy. Okay, and you know, if your reading of your policy is reasonable, then push for it. And by that I mean, let's say you have one of those extended replacement riders that gives you 25 or 50 or 100% more above your structure coverage than stated in the event of a disaster or in the event that you establish that you need it, right? Well, read the wording in the policy. Is it possible? Would a reasonable reading of that language be that you would apply that extension. Let's say you have your coverage A is, let's say just for sake of argument, is 500,000. And if you have a 50% extension, that would bump it up, right, to 750,000. And you have coverages like your debris removal, your trees and shrubs, code upgrade that is set not as a dollar amount, but as a percentage of A. Well, shouldn't it be a percentage of 750, not 500? But again, it has to be reasonable based on the reading of the policy. And so a little bit of creativity is fine, as long as you're not making an argument that's completely off base. Okay, this is an example of an endorsement or a rider that has surfaced since your fire. A couple of people have found, people that are insured with Safeco, and it may be some other companies as well, may have this endorsement applying to their coverage that gives them, in the yellow, you can't read it, but it says, in the event of a covered loss resulting from an insurance services office declared catastrophe for the state in which the residence premises is located, the limit for extended dwelling coverage shall be up to twice the percentage shown for extended dwelling coverage on the declarations. Now, I'm not saying everybody with Safeco has double coverage. I am not saying that. What I'm saying is you read your declarations page carefully. And it's like a little puzzle. It's like a key. And if you cannot match all those codes for the rider's endorsements that you see on the deck page with wording in the policy, there may be a piece of your policy missing. And you want to get that, because if by some chance that kind of endorsement should have been there, then obviously you want to know about it. Here we have a typical declaration page, and this is what I'm talking about. You've got those categories, A, B, dwelling, other structures, personal property, loss of use. And then here you've got forms and endorsements made part of this policy, okay? And this is where you're going to find, this is what I was talking about with the key and the codes. So here's the limited home replacement cost endorsement, and then it's got a bunch of numbers, HO something. That's an ISO. Those are ISO numbers. ISO is the Insurance Services Office that publishes that document you just saw. And here's another one, replacement value endorsement personal property, HO something. Okay. So again, you just want to read these things, and you want to ask questions, and you want to make sure you understand every possible source of coverage you may have. Okay. You have a right to information. We already talked about you get a complete and current copy of your policy within 30 days of your request. Hopefully by now, everybody has their policy. But again, if you got it from your agent, it may not be the most complete or current. We're sort of in this weird phase now between where a lot of insurance companies are trying to go paperless, and so sometimes the digital records and the paper records don't quite sync up. So that's why many of you may not even have the real policy, and you just want to make absolutely sure that you have it. Okay, you have the right to know how your insurance company calculated depreciation and how they calculated your settlement offer, okay? California is, if you're gonna have to lose your home in a disaster, California is a great place to do it because we have so many protections in place because, well, we've had a lot of disasters, which has given us the opportunity to improve the law over the years. So that's one of them. You get to ask and know how they applied depreciation. And then this is an incredibly important right that you have here in California that you don't have in any other state except Colorado. So only California and Colorado give you the right to get copies of documents in your claim file. And you're going to hear in a little while from a deputy commissioner at the California Department of Insurance. And they had to put a bulletin out a couple of weeks ago to remind insurance companies about this right, because a lot of insurance companies don't know about it, and adjusters don't know about it. They certainly should, but because a lot of the adjusters came in from out of state, they didn't. And even insurance company executives may not know. In fact, so here it is. All documents that relate to the evaluation of damages, including but not limited to repair and replacement estimates and bids, appraisals, scopes of loss, drawings, et cetera, calculations of the amount of loss. You have the right to ask and get from your insurance company their work product. So we heard in the earlier session today somebody saying, I asked for a copy of the Xactimate estimate and the adjuster said, no, that's my work product, you don't get that. Well, yes, you do. So, and again, for good reason, you know, and we have, you know, if you have ever been involved in litigation, you know there's something called discovery where the parties exchange documents, and that's where you can get the claim file if you're in an insurance dispute. But we fought, our United Policyholders fought to get this law in place because we said, we don't want people to, you know, people who've lost their homes, they don't need to, you know, get involved in lawsuits unless there's a good reason. And they have a right to know, you know, what kind of measurements and what kind of evaluation the insurance company has made of their damages. In fact, it's the economically efficient thing because there's, you know, very often if you know, there's no reason to pay two experts to do the same thing. So, but if you need to make sure that what the insurance company's estimates are, that you agree with them, and if you don't, then you can get your own. And that's why we passed this law. So I really encourage you to use it. And on the back of your agenda, you will find a copy of the sample letter that we publish to help you make that request. So one of the things you'll find at our website is our sample letters, and you can customize them. In fact, you must customize them because you don't want to submit it with the word sample across. Okay, so this is one of them. Okay, what are your other rights? You have the right to an orderly claim process. The insurer is supposed to respond to written communications within 15 days. They are supposed to disclose all benefits, coverage, time limits, etc. They're not supposed to hide the ball. And if you have a number of adjusters rotating out, they must give you a status report so that you don't start from scratch every time a new adjuster comes in. You have the right to full payment of policy benefits. We talked about this at prior workshops. This is another law that the department had to remind insurers about because a lot of adjusters and insurers didn't know it existed. You have 2 years from the first ACV payment to collect your full replacement cost benefits. 2 years. That's 24 months. You know what the normal timeline is? 180 days, okay? So take a deep breath and just remember what I said. Time is on your side, okay? You have the right to fair depreciation based on both age and condition, right? Adjusters are busy, you know, it's corporate America, right? They have more clients than they should, you know, assign to them. So of course they look for shortcuts. So it's pretty common for adjusters to try to depreciate things across the board. So, you know, I'm going to depreciate all of your clothing by 15%. No, that's not legal. It's expeditious, but it's not legal because you may have some things that were new and you may have some things that were old, and if you want to take the time to push, then you can remind the adjuster, no, there's no across-the-board depreciation allowed here. And why does it matter? It matters because how many of you have gotten a nice, good ACV payment on your content, on your personal property contents already? Some kind of a check. Huh, okay, all right. So it matters because some people never go back after they get their ACV checks and claim the full replacement. They don't take the time to submit the receipts, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, I just don't want to think about this anymore. I want to put this behind me. And so that's why fighting for fair depreciation is worth it, because you just, you know, it's just bird in the hand, right? Because the less they depreciate your stuff, the more money they pay you, right? All right, you know you have, again, this is a California rule, you have up to 24 months of additional living expense coverage. It doesn't increase the amount of your coverage, but it gives you 2 years at least to use it. And given the limited housing supply up here, I'm hearing about a lot of folks in your situation who are using their ALE money to buy a fifth wheel or buy a tiny home, or and that is a perfectly sensible way to get a decent-ish quality of life over the next couple years while you either rebuild or figure out what you want to do. So again, you have that right. You have the right to replace your home by buying, not rebuilding. That's another California-only rule that, again, a lot of adjusters just don't know about it, and they may argue back. I've heard a lot of stories of people saying, well, my adjuster told me no, I couldn't do that, or my adjuster said that if I wanted to buy a replacement home, I was going to have, all I would have would be my ACV. Not true, all right? In California, we can go to the next one, please. If you want to buy or rebuild elsewhere, you have that absolute right. And not only do you have available to you your coverage A, right? But you can also have available your building code upgrade coverage, code compliance coverage, and your extended replacement benefits can be available to you to apply to the home you want to buy. Now, it's still a relatively new-ish law, and so there are still some soft spots with it. So, for example, what's going to happen with the land, the value of the land when you buy, that's something you may have to negotiate. But from our organization's perspective and from the perspective of the Department of Insurance, I'm going to show you where you can find that confirmation. You can use all available benefits to buy a replacement home. Now, what are all available benefits? Well, certainly if you can establish, I mean, for almost every single person that we've been talking to up here seems to be underinsured. Not everyone, but it seems like most people. Raise your hand if you think you might be underinsured on your dwelling. Okay. So awful, no question about it. And there may be, not maybe, there will be litigation on this, and a lot of you probably will end up getting involved. And I know a lot of people are thinking about joining a suit against, say, the utility company, and partly as a way of compensating for the fact that they're underinsured, also compensating for the fact that your insurance company is not going to cover some of your losses, and that is a way for people to get made whole if the facts support it in your case. But again, for purposes of buying, not rebuilding, what do you have to do? Well, you have to establish the hypothetical rebuilding cost as if you were going to rebuild at your original location. What would it cost you? What would it cost you for all the components of a project? Hiring a general contractor and the subcontractors and all the materials, and what would be involved in complying with the building codes in order to get a permit, in order to get a certificate of occupancy. And once you do that exercise, that hypothetical as was, which we often refer to as a scope of loss, and you get to that number, then you know how much dwelling coverage you're entitled to. And in most cases, it's going to be your full coverage A and your extended benefits and your code upgrade coverage. In most cases, that hypothetical project is going to tap into every dollar of your available structure coverage. And once you establish that to the satisfaction of your insurance company, that's the dollar figure that you have available. Now, where do a lot of people have problems with this on this point? Number one, getting competent, qualified professional opinions can be very hard on a project that you don't intend to build, right? Almost nobody rebuilds the exact same house that they had. Almost nobody. Most people want to either add a bedroom or make it smaller or make it more modern or what have you. And so they don't want to waste time on calculating a project that's fictional. Like, I'm never going to rebuild that house. Why do I have to put the time into into creating that proof? Well, I'll tell you why. Because your insurance company is going to hold you to that. That is what they are contractually obligated to pay you. And if you try to settle your dwelling claim on the basis of the house you want to build, it can be almost impossible, because the insurance companies are always on alert for fraud, and they are always on alert for betterment. They don't pay for betterment. And so again, you've got to find a way to create that proof. And there are a couple of ways to do it. We were talking about this in the earlier session. If you've already found a builder that if you are going to rebuild, but you want to rebuild elsewhere, and you got a builder, okay, then say to that builder, okay, I need you to help me prepare this as-was scope so that we can reach a settlement, and then you can build whatever you want, right? But you can't skip that step, as much as everyone would love to skip that step. Now we did talk about the possibility of getting an appraiser, like somebody who's got not just the professional qualifications to appraise the real estate sale value, but somebody who's qualified to appraise the replacement value, even though they may not actually nail the nails and build I think that may be a source for some folks in this community to get that proof, to get that negotiated settlement, to go ahead and do what you want to do. But again, if you try to jump over, chances are you're not going to be able to reach an agreement with the insurance company, because they, as I said, they're very, very sensitized and to not paying more than they owe. Okay. This is, if you go to our website, uphelp.org, and you type in the search box, rebuild or buy, you'll find a whole library section with this, which is the legal opinion that the Department of Insurance issued to an elected official in 2008 after the San Diego wildfires, confirming that in his view, in the agency's view, you can export the extended benefits and the code upgrade coverage to the home you want to buy, okay? You have the right to be treated fairly. Your insurance company has a duty to act in good faith and effectuate a prompt, efficient, and equitable settlement. Your insurance company's good faith duties, as well as what are considered unfair insurance practices, are all listed in regulations, statutes, and case law. The phrase bad faith, which you may have heard from some of the firms that are up here giving guidance. What is it? It's basically unreasonable conduct. But again, there are so many laws that protect you that I don't know, maybe I'm just an optimist. I feel like, most of you should be able to navigate just fine without having to get in a lawsuit with your insurance company. I'm not talking about litigating with a utility, against the utility. I'm just talking about having to bring a bad faith suit. I think it's really unlikely. Now, some of you may get involved in litigation related to why you're underinsured. Again, that's a different thing. But a bad faith case is where the insurance company has done something bad during the adjustment process. And again, I'm optimistic that hopefully you won't need to go there. But just, again, this is leverage. These are sources of leverage, right? That's the law. California is what's called a bad faith state, which means the penalties are pretty steep for insurance companies that engage in bad faith. So they, generally speaking, try to avoid those scenarios. Okay, and again, an insurance company must not put its financial interests above yours. All right, they've got to notify you within 60 days of any deadline expiring that would cut off your rights to collect benefits or file suit. They can't retaliate against you for filing a complaint with the Department of Insurance, and they can't lowball you. But of course, the word lowball is, kind of hot button, so we put it in lawyerese there. Insurance companies cannot attempt to settle your claim with an unreasonably low offer, which is the same thing as lowballing. Okay, they can't discriminate. Why do we encourage people to get into these carrier-specific groups? Well, one reason is it's just a practical way to support each other and get good ideas and avoid making mistakes and that kind of thing. Another is that insurance companies are not supposed to discriminate against insureds that are similarly situated. So if you're with, Allstate and your adjuster is making you itemize, every single item in your closet, and then somebody else, your neighbor who's insured with Allstate, got a nice check, advance check for their contents without inventorying, well, you can definitely bring that to the attention of your adjuster in writing, and that should help you get the same treatment your neighbor got. Okay, we're not going to go into too much detail about the voluntary claim reforms, but that's to say that if you haven't gotten an advance on your ALE or an advance on your contents, then you should ask for it, because most of the insurance companies said they were agreeing to abide by a set of voluntary claim reforms, or sometimes people call them the expedited claim reforms. They were negotiated a number of years ago after a wildfire in order to try to ease the pain and try to get. It's sort of like, the insurance commissioner went to the insurance executives and said, hey, rather than us going back to the legislature again and putting more protections in place, how about we reach this agreement and you guys could, be good guys and make people's lives a little easier. And they did agree that they would abide, but we're hearing stories all over the place. Some of them are, some of them are not. But again, those reforms, you'll find them listed at our website. And the main ones are 4 months advance on your ALE without you having to submit receipts and all that sort of thing, and 30% of your contents coverage limits, again, without you having to inventory. Now, those are just supposed to be advances. So if you haven't gotten those, you should ask for them. And if your insurance company says, well, we didn't participate in that, that's something you should put in writing, and just say, I'm so surprised that your company, seemed like almost every other company, is not making this reasonable accommodation to ease our path. Okay, what are some of the common hotspots the adjuster thinks the policyholder is trying to pad, build bigger and better? Once they think that you're not trustworthy, things can go much slower. Scope and valuation disputes, whose numbers are right? Xactimate spits out a number and says it's going to cost $300,000 to put your house back, and the local builder that you're talking to says it's $600,000, right? That's classic, right? ACV, RCV disputes and holdbacks, excessive depreciation based only on age or across the board percentage, like I said earlier. And we already talked about out-of-state adjusters not knowing how strongly we protect the consumer here in California. Next slide. What are how many partial losses do we have in here? Okay, all right. We're going to be doing a partial loss workshop in the new year. What are some of the hot spots with partial loss claims? The extent of the damage from extreme heat and smoke, indoor air quality, particulates, soft goods. That's like your couches, your clothing that absorb the smoke. Don't let it go. Whether things can be cleaned and salvaged, or whether they just need to be replaced. Preferred vendors that overcharge or underperform, your ServiceMaster, your ServPro, that kind of thing. What are some of the hot spots on total losses? Who's to blame for the inadequate coverage? That is a huge one, right? Okay. What is the extent of itemization on the contents that they're requiring? Are they making you, list everything, or are they letting you lump things together as they should? Scope of loss, code upgrades, the replacement value of the as was, right? Again, that hypothetical, fictional, but very important number that you have to get to. And of course, the benefits available to buy a replacement home. That's something that often has to be negotiated. Okay, how do you communicate effectively with your insurance company? You remember that an insurance claim is a business negotiation. The better your loss documentation and the more reasonable your asks, the better your settlement will be. Confirm all communications in writing. A paper trail helps ensure that promises get kept. Remember that adjusters have varying levels of authority. Every insurer has a chain of command, local, regional, national. Most of the time, the adjuster that's assigned to your loss has a very low dollar amount that they're allowed to commit to paying. Most of the time, they've got to go up, up, up to get authority, right? And we suggest, in terms of effective communication, right, we talk a lot about this paper trail. And that's because insurance companies just respond much quicker and much better to when you put things in writing, right? And so we say, when you are creating your paper trail, right, you want to keep it short, keep it simple, keep it professional, and I suggest how many of you are communicating with your adjuster by email? A lot. Wow, yeah, it's a new day. That's fine, that's fine. My suggestion is, with emails, or anything else really, keep it as short as you can and try to stick to 1 or 2 topics per email. Because I've noticed in my professional life that when I send somebody an email and I put 3 things in it, chances are I'm going to get back an answer on maybe 1, maybe 2, but almost never all the issues. So it's better just to address only 1 or 2 points in each of the emails you send. And hopefully, and you don't want to be, you don't want to be that policyholder that the adjuster starts to think is just over the top, right? You want to try to be as professional as you can, meaning, you don't have to send them 10 emails a day. Save it for the really important points so that they take you seriously and they respect you and they know that you are gonna stay the course, see this through, and get a fair settlement, right? Okay, and if you do use the free process of filing a complaint with the Department of Insurance, which we highly recommend you do if the need arises, we suggest before you do it that you send a nice short summary to the insurance company that states your best arguments and status. So this is where we are, this is the problem that we need to resolve, or these are the problems, this is why I'm right, and of course in polite terms, this is why you're wrong. But again, what you want is for when their officer opens up that complaint file, we want them to be able to read your letter and get and understand what's going on, and of course hear it from your perspective in a very clear way. So, oh, okay, I see. There's a problem here over the fact that the policyholder didn't have plans from the original house, but they were able to recreate them. Whatever the issue is, you want to frame it as clearly as you can so that the person that you're complaining to is going to go, oh yeah, this person is making a good case, right? Okay. What's the typical chain of command at an insurance company? You got your adjuster, then above them is the supervisor, and above them is the unit manager, and then the assistant manager, and then you've got the claims manager or claims VP in the local office, and then you've got the regional claims VP who's over a bunch of local offices, and then the top is generally going to be the home office. And at the home office, there are usually 3 divisions: field management in charge of regional managers, technical management, and then major claims. And most of you are going to be in the major claims unit. Now, the good news about that is that those are generally going to be the more experienced adjusters that are going to be making the real decisions. That doesn't mean the adjuster that you're dealing with is that person. They are a conduit, they are a go-between. Then, of course, insurance companies also have legal units, and they have what are called SIU units, special investigation units. And if they think somebody's trying to defraud them, they will flag it and it will get assigned to the SIU unit. One of the reasons that I really encourage people to you can get free legal advice. There's a lot of great attorneys, in Santa Rosa that are giving free, they'll give a free review of your policy and they'll annotate it for you. Great, get that information. But I really recommend that you hold off on letting a third party be your representative with the insurance company unless you really just can't handle it, in which case you're probably not even here. If you can handle the communications, as long as you can, you're generally going to get a better outcome, because as soon as a lawyer gets involved, very often, then the insurance company is going to think, oh, now we have to have a lawyer, and so then you're going to get bumped to somebody. And if it's an outside lawyer, then that person, of course, gets paid by the hour, and that's never going to be helpful. That's not to say that you shouldn't get a lawyer. I'm not saying that at all. You know, what I'm saying is, don't just do that because you have some impression that you're going to get taken advantage of if you don't, right? So again, that's give the insurance company a chance to do the right thing, but don't be a pushover. All right, and you can also have lawyers ghostwrite letters for you. That happens all the time. You can have lawyers give you advice, but as soon as you say to the insurance company, I am now being represented by counsel, then you're going to be in a different category. And again, not necessarily a bad thing. If you've already done that, don't feel bad, don't worry, but just understand that that's going to change the dynamic a little bit. Okay, we have lots and lots of samples of damage and proof of loss documentation at our website. Again, you want to customize those letters. And here's just a piece of survivor wisdom from one of our wonderful volunteers who, like Fred, are willing to kind of relive a little bit of their trauma in the interest of helping people who are now in this unfortunate fraternity you find yourself in. The loss of your home is a deeply emotional loss. Emotion is the enemy of a good business deal. When dealing with contractors, suppliers, insurers, banks, and other businesses, the more you resist emotional decisions, the better it will turn out. Do not let businesses profit off of your emotions. And those are the words of Ken Klein, who is one of our volunteers, lost his home in a wildfire. He's been calling me nonstop since the fires broke out yesterday because he lives down south. But again, there's so much good help out there for your community, so I'm very proud to be one of the conduits. So I'm now going to turn the mic over to a colleague who I have the deepest respect for. Tony Signorelli is a deputy commissioner at the Department of Insurance, and even though he lives and works out of Los Angeles, I think he's been up in your community almost as much as I have been, and I live an hour away. So Tony was up here with his team in the local assistance center. He's been he helped negotiate the debris removal arrangement to ease your path there with your benefits. He has helped organize the commissioner's event this coming Sunday. He's going to talk to you about that and the opportunity you have to sign up for consultations. And again, there are lots of different sources of help. And the only reason I kept talking about lawyers tonight is just because there have been so many sort of seminars and events, and I could well imagine it is overwhelming. And I think, my advice is just, take it in if you can, listen to the advice. But remember, when somebody tells you there's only one way to do it, or you must do this, or you should never do that, always take that with a grain of salt, and think, okay, what's going on here? Because, again, you paid good money for coverage and claim service. And there are a lot of laws to protect you, making sure that you get that. So before you go and commit a portion of your benefits to pay somebody, just make sure you need that help. And there's nothing wrong with hiring a public adjuster or a lawyer, nothing wrong. In fact, it's a great thing for people to have that resource. Excuse me. I just encourage people not to do it prematurely, because you're going to need every dollar of benefits that are available to you. You know that. Okay. So we're going to be, I'll be back as soon as Tony is done with his piece. We'll do Q&A. We will be holding another workshop in January. And I will be wishing you all a very comfortable and safe holiday. Tony?
Thank you, Amy. I'm going to go through, our process. You file a complaint with us, different things we can offer you, talk about our event this Saturday, talk about a few laws. But the main thing you need to know is we have a phone number, a hotline, and a website. You can contact us, ask us individual questions. You could file a complaint with us. You can ask us questions online, or you could go do a formal complaint online. So whatever I'm telling you today, you don't need to memorize it, just to put some thoughts in your head about maybe what circumstances you might be similar to what I'm talking about. But feel free to contact us 5 days a week at that hotline number, or we have a lot of resources online. Our complaint process, as Amy suggested, work it out, try to work it out with your insurance company. In many of your cases, you're not going to need our assistance. But if you run into an impasse, you really think that you have an unanswered question, an impasse over value, a denial of a certain portion of your claim, or any impasse that you have or question, contact us. We can answer your question. We can attempt to resolve the issue. And once we resolve that issue, we'll at least have your case. So maybe you're done with us for a while. Maybe next month you have another issue. You're working on the replacement cost or the contents piece. At least you'll have that same compliance officer to work with. He'll have your case. He'll have most of your claim file. He can just update the information, and we'll be able to monitor that case from beginning to end, whether it's 3 months, 4 months, a year, 2 years. We'll be with you the whole way. The way the process will work is you contact us, we'll contact the insurance company, we'll get their entire claim file. If it's an underinsurance issue, we'll get the entire underwriting file. We'll follow your policy from the inception with your application through each year of your policy to see what happened during that time when you got your new coverage, as well as each year did inflation trigger additional coverage, or did it not? Did the insurance company follow our our replacement cost regulations when they gave you a replacement cost estimate? Did they leave out certain things? If we find those kinds of things, it gives us room to work with the insurance company to provide a remedy and get them to either increase your coverage limit or resolve a particular issue. So that's what we'll look to do on the underinsurance side. On the claim side, we'll attempt to resolve a delay or a denial, any of those issues. At the end of that process, if there's still an impasse, there's also a statutory formal mediation program that's free to you. The insurance company is required to pay it, and it's mandatory on insurance companies. So if there's an impasse and we don't resolve that particular issue, we can move it over to a mandatory mediation program with an independent mediator looking at it, and the insurance company cannot decline going to that mediation. And at the end of that, a mediator will set an award. That award is non-binding. So if you're not happy with that award and you don't think that it's something you want to go with, you don't have to take it. But we have gotten a lot of settlements through that process. It only triggers after a declared disaster, of which this is, and so it is an opportunity to use that mediation program. For underinsurance issues, however, it's not mandatory on the insurance company. So we can go through our process and request the insurance company to do mediation, the independent mediation program, but they can decline it. Most companies will accept it anyway and go through that process. And again, it's free to you and it's non-binding on you. Amy mentioned earlier the out-of-state adjusters coming in, giving you, here's what your policy says, and that's different than what maybe the law is. There's a lot of laws that trigger after a disaster, so it doesn't matter what your policy says. You get additional protections once there is a declared disaster. I'm going to run through a few of those right now. We issued this notice in November, a couple weeks ago, because we were hearing from you that I was told I only get 6 months or 12 months of ALE, or I have to replace my home within 12 months, or I lose my replacement cost coverage, that sort of thing. So we wanted to clarify that, sent the notice out to all the insurance companies saying, if you're going to use out-of-state adjusters, they need to know the law and they need to provide accurate information to the consumer. One of them is the 24-month after a loss. You get 24 months after the initial actual cash value payment to recover your full replacement cost. So you have that additional protection regardless of what your policy says. In addition, additional living expenses, you get up to 24 months, regardless of what your policy says. It could say 6 months or 12 months, but because it's a declared disaster, you get 24 months. However, it doesn't increase your policy limit. So if you have $50,000 in additional living expenses, you get the additional, you get up to 24 months, but it doesn't increase your policy limit by any amount. Another issue is rebuilding. Amy talked about this earlier, rebuilding in another location or replacing in another location. You are allowed to rebuild on your current lot. You can rebuild on a new lot that you purchase, or you can purchase an entirely new property and you're still eligible for your full replacement cost, which we believe includes an extended replacement cost and all the other coverages that Amy spoke of earlier. In addition, if an insurance company changes adjusters, they're required to send you a report of your current status of your claim so that the new adjuster is not, you don't have to start over with that new adjuster. And that's really important, especially when the companies initially send over out-of-state adjusters, and 2 months later you have a new adjuster and you feel like you're starting over. They're required to send you a report with the current status of the claim, so at least there's a record of that, so you don't have to start from scratch. On underwriting issues, cancellations, and renewals, the insurance company cannot cancel you if you've had a total loss merely because you've had a total loss. So they can't say, hey, we're going to cancel you because your home burned down. They cannot do that. The law says they cannot do that. Likewise, if your home is a total loss, the insurance company is required to offer that next renewal. So your next renewal coming up, they can't say, oh, we decided not to renew you because your home is a total loss. They have to renew for that next renewal. And in addition, they have to have a conversation with you, whether it's them themselves or the agent talking to you about, oh, you no longer have the structure at this point, depending on when your renewal occurs. How can we adjust your coverages and therefore adjust your premium to meet your current needs at the time that you're doing that renewal? And so that's a conversation that you should look to have with your insurance company or your agent or your broker. This letter, yes, that notice is available on our website. If you go to our homepage, and there's a fire recovery section there, you're going to find the expedited and voluntary claim reform notice with all what those reforms, what those entail. You're going to find the notice, this particular notice with all the different laws that you can just show your adjuster. And you're going to find a lot of other notices that the commissioner issued or other resources, guides, and other links that will be assistance to you. And I think that's all I have. We'll go to the Q&A.
What does an insurance company cover after complete loss? For the renewal? What's to cover?
It's the question.
Oh, about the renewal. Well, number one, you still have property and you still have liability exposure. So if someone gets hurt on your property, you're going to have a liability coverage. Also, you don't want to, let's say, most insurance companies won't insure zero coverage. And so they may have a minimum amount, let's say $100,000. And so maybe they can reduce it to $100,000, but at the same time, it depends on where you are on that renewal. If you're already into your rebuilding and you don't want to be stuck at $100,000 for that whole next year, right? So you need to really work with your company, and maybe they can adjust it as different stages of your rebuilding goes. There are some companies, and embedded in some policies, there's actually a course of construction coverage that triggers in your policy. So there are some of the major companies out there may have that particular coverage in there already that will actually increase and cover that course of construction as different phases get built. And it's not entirely common, but it is in a few of your policies.
So, I don't know if this one's on. Is this on? Andrew, can you- Okay, so I just wanted to reiterate for the folks that may not have followed that, that discussion just now. A lot of people will say, there's nothing there. Why do I have to keep paying my home insurance premium when there's no house there, right? There's a logic to that. But generally, and there is a law it's pretty soft. It says the insurer should work with you to reduce, to something like, was it like tailor the coverage to the current situation? You can always ask to reduce the amount of the coverage, but we don't recommend that you drop or cancel the policy for a couple reasons that Tony was just saying. Number one, there's liability exposure. You've got this vacant lot, and you want to make sure that if somebody were to get injured, you'd have coverage. And also, as you replace property, you want to make sure that that property is covered. So if you buy furniture at your temporary house, you want to make sure that's covered. But also because you don't want to lose that right to keep your insurance, which I hate to say may be a problem for some people down the road. But don't worry about that yet. The bottom line is that you're probably better off. Well, the best scenario is you get your insurer to reduce the coverage and reduce the price. But if you can't get them to do that, we do not recommend that you let the policy lapse. I did have somebody in the earlier session say, how about my earthquake insurance? I think because that's a separate policy, if there is no house, I don't see any reason to keep paying your earthquake insurance premium. It's never hard to buy that back if you need it. It's a different scenario. So we're going to go into the Q&A. I just want to make sure we go through the rest of the slides. So here's a recap of the resources. For more information on your legal rights, you can go to our library, uphelp.org, and you will find the guide to your legal rights. Again, we have a special library for the North Bay fires. We have given you the websites for the different organizations that are here. Most of them had materials out on the tables. We have a series of publications called Survivors Speak. And they were written by people like Fred and some of the folks that you met at the LAC. And you'll find them in the Survivors Speak section of our website. And I like them because, well, first of all, they're not written by lawyers. And so they're very, very plain English. But they also have that kind of personal view from your perspective. So choosing to make lemonade out of lemons, things I wish I had known, observations from a teenage wild survivor is a really interesting one if you have kids and you're trying to figure out how you can be helping them. I strongly encourage you, if you did not sign up, if you have an email address, please sign up before you leave and give us your email address, because that's the main way we have of letting you know about the events that we're going to be hosting. We are hoping to be here through the full long-term recovery. We will be applying for grants from some of the foundations that we're collecting money from the concerts and the different fundraising. So we are very, very grateful to be here. We are very grateful to have the partners of the city and the county and the other nonprofits. But we're really grateful just to be able to be here for all of you. So during the Q&A, I've got our staff attorney, Dan Wade, there to help with the microphone. And I think I covered everything. Did I miss anything, Dan? I'm sorry? Oh, I want to thank our volunteers, Fred Booker, Matt Everson, who's not here right now, but was here for the earlier session. He is our local volunteer here. He stepped up after the disaster. He is a retired financial planner. He's going to be helping with the event in January. Ken Klein, Sue Piper, Karen Remus, who you all heard at the last couple workshops, will be back in March. And the time, you mean for the thing in January? I'm not sure yet. We're still getting all those details worked out. But not only do I want you to be on our email list so that you'll know when we're going to be back here, but also we are going to be doing a survey. Part of what we do is we conduct roadmap to recovery surveys to sort of take your temperature on where you are, what are the issues that you would like us to bring speakers in to talk about, what in addition to kind of a lot of this overview stuff that we're doing, we also will do things like a dispute resolution type of an event where we'll bring in, lawyers, insurance company people, just kind of like what the department's going to do on Saturday. But we'll be doing that down the line a little bit more. And again, our purpose here is to be as relevant and useful to you as we can. So we are anxious to hear from you. When we do these surveys, we ask you to fill them out.